Big shoulders, right?
I do, yes.
Caused all the problems with the road system because he didn't know how to treat it.
I have file boxes to lean on, Rob.
That was a good picture, wasn't it?
See, I never knew that until
Thank you.
I was gonna wrestle
And it's
you
true.
with someone
showed
with
up.
this.
They called me like an
Mary
hour
Close.
before. And said, yeah, and said, can we come over? Because they didn't believe me. I said, oh yeah, come on. Come on. And you can pull out any file you want. Come on and look. Come on and take a look at the books.
Actually, that's it.
You ready, Dickie Doo? Oh, am I ready? It was yours. Yeah, they're playing hockey tonight.
Yeah, my laptop. I remember.
Let's go.
Before I had this.
Support.
Because I couldn't see the projector. Meeting broadcast, I could see it.
Lemkool made a motion to adjourn, and I support it.
Oh, that's sort of hard to do since we haven't.
We're in good humor.
Not even started yet.
He sounds interesting, man.
I picked some.
Kidding, were you?
She's in there.
She didn't laugh.
Who's in charge of keeping them in line tonight? Do we need to separate you two and make you sit in corners?
Apparently, yes.
No, we need a babysitter.
Oh, come on.
I do that all day long. I don't have time when I come here.
All right, it's 7 p.m. on the first day of spring, March 21st. The media always
Last day of
says,
summer.
yesterday is the first day of spring. They're wrong. Spring begins on the 20th. The first day is on the 21st. This is the normally scheduled meeting of Ways and Means. And anybody that has a cell phone, we'd appreciate it if you turn them off or switch them over to the silent mode. If you wish, you can take videos, recordings, or whatever. It's all recorded, and you're on TV if you come up to the table. So I will take comment on a specific topic during the course of our discussion, after our discussion, if you don't want to speak at public comment. And the first item of business would be the Pledge of Allegiance, and would you join us, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is roll call. Linda, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Maxbauer. Here. Thomas.
Here.
Richardson.
Here.
Lemkool.
Here.
Henschel.
Yes.
Inman.
Here.
Gilman.
Here.
Chairman Fleece.
Present. Next item is the approval of the minutes of February 15th, 2000.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the February 15th, 2012 minutes as presented.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Been moved and supported to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is unanimous, passes.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the closed session minutes for February 15th, 2012 as
Support.
distributed.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion's unanimous. Now we arrive at our first public comment. Is there anyone desiring to address the board on any issue?
We had 20 of them.
Aye.
Mr. Lyle, you don't have anything you want to say? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Next item is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's unanimous. Special orders of business, I don't believe we have any. Next item is the consent calendar. And would you read the consent calendar and the items on it, please?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. 1, granting of easement, Grand Traverse Commons. 2, Child Care Fund. 3, Tax Management Associates, Inc., TMA contract. B, approval, none. C, action, none.
Having heard the items on the consent calendar, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to have anything removed? Seeing none, any commissioners? Herb?
Item 1.
Jason?
Same item 1.
Okay, number 1's removed, and we'll place it under items removed from the consent calendar. Any discussion on the other two, or I'd be open for a motion? Ross?
I move for approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item A1.
Support.
Any discussion on the motion? Been moved and supported to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 1. All in favor, or no, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Max Bauer?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Richardson?
Yes.
Lemko?
Yep.
Henschel?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Flees.
Yes. Next item is items removed from the consent calendar. Number 1, granting of the easement, Grand Traverse Commons. Herb?
Yeah, I think it's just it's an update for everybody to let them know what's going on. And I think if Gene or Ray would want to kind of give an idea of what we're doing.
Good evening, Gene.
My name is Jean Dorenzi with the Grand Traverse County Planning and Development Department. And today is to give you information about a request for an easement between Building 50 and Cottage 21 of the Grand Traverse Pavilions. There's a new investor that is looking to redevelop the last section of Building 50, which is approximately 110,000 square feet of Building 50, into 110 senior living apartments for that building, bringing about 60 new jobs into the community. The deed that is being requested, there's some conditions on this deed. The deed would go to the Minervinis to construct a pedestrian walkway plaza with parking spaces component to it. It would be a common element of the village at Grand Traverse Commons to be utilized by the senior living development, with 3 spaces to be shared by both the senior living and the Grand Traverse Pavilions. There'd be no cost involved by Grand Traverse County nor the pavilions for the design, construction, or engineering of the pedestrian walkway. And the annual maintenance of that pavilion would not be the county nor the pavilions. As you know, this is adjacent of the neighboring of the Grand Traverse Pavilions. The request for the easement went to the Department of Human Services Board at their February meeting, with the full presentation to be made this Friday at their meeting, which is the 23rd. This should be a complementary approach. This is a senior living. Hopefully it matches well with the pavilions. It does match well with the Grand Traverse Commons, the village overall. We have today Corey Hansen, who is the director of the pavilions, Mary McRoy from the DHS board, and Raymond Minervini. We are going to be giving a full presentation, and then I will be going to the DHS board along with Raymond to make sure that their concerns, issues are heard and brought back to this county board of commissioners as well relative to that easement.
Anyone have any questions of Jean?
I have a statement when she's all done.
Pardon?
I have a statement when she's all done, but I can wait until. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we...
Receive and file.
Do we have to consent to the easement?
No, we're just receiving and
I'm
filing.
not asking for your approval at this time. We'd come back with the recommendation after the DHS board has had time to review.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
This is just for informational purposes at this time.
Jason?
According to this, of course, the county needs to, the county owns the easement between the properties, and the county would have to give it up. And all I'm going to say is that I would hope, for the sake of consistency, that the commissioners who vote to give away or to give up this easement to help pick the winners that are going to be benefiting from this would also consider that area in between the water and the homes of people who once had waterfront property because of the drawdown of the dams. Now, if you can't do that, I can't agree with this, because obviously we're going to have to operate on some kind of consistent level, so.
Chris?
Unless I have not heard, I don't think we have a motion yet to receive and file, so I would
Yeah.
make a motion.
You do.
We do?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Do we have a second?
Do you have a second?
I'll support it.
Any other discussion or comments? Been moved and supported to receive and file number 1, the easement granting at Grand Traverse Commons. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Gene. Okay, the next item on the agenda is planning and development. Number 1 is the Next Michigan Development Corporation budget. It's on page 15 in your packet. Evening, John.
Good evening, John Syke, Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County. What we're presenting for your consideration this evening is reappropriation of a existing restricted EDC fund that was, apparently from my understanding, that was established based on fees that were paid from loan applications to the revolving loan fund under the supervision of the Economic Development Corporation. That those application fees were taken quite some time ago. The fund has, for the most part, has just been sitting idle, probably because of its restrictions for economic development activities. We're proposing the use of those dollars in order to fund initial activities for the Next Michigan Development Corporation, including, as the budget proposed there, for contractual services, professional services, including attorney.
Does anyone have any questions of John? Rob?
John, we haven't had a chance to talk lately. What is the status of that EDC fund? Is that moving out of the county now, or where is it in limbo?
This is not the same thing as...
This is a different fund?
This is a separate fund. This was, at one point, the EDC, when it was operating the revolving loan fund, did receive application fees associated with the applications. At some point prior to my arrival, that must have ceased. However, those funds were collected, and they've been sitting in this fund for quite some time. So it's not the same thing as the actual revolving loan fund.
Well, what is the status of the revolving loan fund then?
The application went to the state of Michigan, to the MEDC at this point, for approval.
Of?
The relocation of the Chamber Development Fund.
All right, just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And this fund does not go with that, if approved?
No, this is a separate fund. This is
Totally
one that's been established. I don't know exactly what date this was established,
Okay.
but
And is this the entirety of that fund?
yes, it is.
So then we can get rid of that fund that no one knows where it came from exactly?
Well, I know how it was established, but it
Okay.
was just prior to my arrival here, so
Okay,
I
I
don't know
see.
the exact date of when it was established.
Great.
Ross and then Jason?
And I've been on the EDC for over 3 years, and I didn't even know this fund existed.
Yes.
Oh, okay, gee, $19,000 I didn't know we had. Okay, that's fine. I would make the motion to approve the appropriation of the restricted EDC fund to the Next Michigan Development Corporation.
Second.
Jason?
If, let's just, for the sake of argument, say that we didn't appropriate this to the, this Next Michigan Development Corporation that is for Traverse City, Garfield Township, East Bay Township, and Blair only. Is the fund, can we appropriate the fund to the county and just, and essentially do away with the fund and sequester it for our own uses?
I don't know that for certain. It's been identified as a restricted EDC fund. I'm assuming when it was established, it was for the purpose of economic development activities, but I don't know that for certain.
But you seem to, you know that it's going to be okay to be used for this specific purpose, taking it for, this is a program that was not around when the fund was developed. As you
That's
say,
right.
it was prior to your arrival. So you know enough to know that you could take the money for this specific project, but not that it has any other potential uses for the county.
From what I know, it does not. I mean, this is something that we're proposing for consideration by the board at this time. It's just, it seems that it makes practical sense that it retains it for economic development activities.
I think before we go and we take the fund and move it into this, what I still consider a questionable venture, this Next Michigan Development, I think that it'd be appropriate that we find out whether or not the fund could be appropriated by the county for use as we are still facing potential budget troubles in the coming year.
It is a county fund. I had suggested over the last 2 budget cycles to budget it, appropriate it back to the general fund for a use such as this, to balance the budget for economic development. We should be clear on what the use of those dollars can be earmarked for, and we do need to do that.
Yeah,
But most likely it is for economic development.
But I just would like to be clear because, I mean, as if it is a fungible, if it is a fungible amount, then certainly we should due diligence and take a look at the county needs first prior to the specific economic development efforts that seem to come up. You know, I mean, everybody has a great idea, but bottom line, we got bills to pay, and we need to start pulling in those loose ends, I think, before we go and, you know.
Ross?
Jason, I certainly understand your concerns, but since we have succeeded in getting Next Michigan started and approved by the state, basically it needs some seed money. The beauty of this proposal is that it's using for seed money that basically, you know, has just been sitting there gathering dust, if you will. Once Next Michigan starts working and developing a project, then the projects themselves will, spin off the money, which will then sustain the Next Michigan program. And certainly, I mean, if at that point there was some thought that we should take that $19,000 and transfer it back to the general fund, I mean, that's what we could do a year or two down the road, for instance.
I would like to, as using an example, putting the cart before the horse, Kalkaska County is a perfect example. Years ago, a group of people wanted an ice arena. And by the way, it's a nice ice arena. They wanted an ice arena athletic center. It's a pretty nice place. So enough of them got together, passed 51% to 49 roughly, thereabouts. And great, millage passed. They're going to have their ice arena. Oh, this didn't include the property to put it on. Well, we passed the millage, so we certainly must have a piece of property for it. So then the county allocated a piece of property for it, where it's at. I said, okay, great, this is settled. No, it wasn't settled. Now, we have a problem. The ice arena has no operating funds. That was the millage to build it. So, again, it's like one thing leads to another, and we need to kind of, like I say, pull these things back and get control of them. And especially right now, gosh, it's just so tough right now with all the revenues shrinking and expenses booming and all that.
Larry?
Well, my suggestion is to pass it and then just have John go back to the state and just clarify the question on the restricted fund to see if it can be used for another purpose. And then he could disclose that at our board meeting. We can pull it off the agenda and have a discussion.
Sonny?
Well, I guess the only point that I would make is this money was specifically collected for the purpose of increasing economic development. We are involved in Next Michigan for the sole purpose of enhancing economic development in our community. It makes sense to me that this was money we collected to enhance economic development. We're participating in the Next Michigan program, and it sounds like we're definitely going to get there. And that's for economic development. That's where we should be spending those monies.
One last thing, and I'll
Go ahead.
we need to pass it, says Commissioner Enman, before we find out what's in it. So,
I already know what's in it. You have another side question.
This isn't a healthcare bill.
We already know what's in it.
but
You have a question that.
but that
staff
doesn't
does not know.
automatically because it was specifically this is from applications, correct?
Application fees,
This
that's
is
correct.
application fees. So this is application fees that were to go to the county to cover the cost of handling the specific activities that they're applying for. In other words, it is county money, and that's my impression.
From my understanding, it was probably to offset administrative costs related to
Exactly.
economic development
That's what the
activities.
application fees are for, and that's why I say it's county money. I think we should consider it county money and not specifically allocated by default to the EDC efforts. Thank you.
Rob?
I guess, John, I'm concerned with allocating money that you're not really sure what the rules are about how we can use the money, and I guess the response we're getting from your, to my knowledge, responses, and it sounds like you're not really sure how this is supposed to be used, and maybe we should do some research before we go allocating it. And if it is general county money, we're using it for a very select number of municipalities within the county when it's the whole county's money, kind of question. Another thing that comes to mind is, I thought, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought when we started this whole Next Michigan thing, it wasn't supposed to be any cost to the county. And I think I heard that a few different times, there wasn't going to be any cost involved. And now we got $20,000 in expenses.
Well, if I could just answer those two. The first one, I think, as Mr. Bott mentioned, that this was a fund that has been available to the county for some time and was recommended for reuse by the county. I think it's appropriate, as these were tied with the EDC, that these would remain with the county in terms of economic development activities. So, and in terms of the actual program, you're right. And I think the idea of the program is to make it self-sustaining. There does need to be some opportunity to at least get a project off the ground. We thought, I mean, I don't, anticipate that maybe, all these funds will be used. I'm not sure for certain, but you have to understand that this is a program that's starting out, and we want to make it self-sustaining, and I believe with 1 or 2 projects that it will be. But we saw this as an appropriate activity for those funds in order to do a program that has already been endorsed by this board.
And which attorney's getting the 10 grand?
Which attorney is getting?
I see attorney $10,000.
Well, I imagine it'd be probably the same attorney that we've used for the EDC in Brownfield, probably Scott Howard.
Okay.
Ross?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about it not costing any money, I think we were specifically talking about not hiring staff, not hiring an executive director and creating a superstructure of, personnel positions. Obviously, every time John Syke, as our planning director, spends time on this, he's costing us money because he's not taking that time and devoting it to something else. We obviously already have spent a few $1,000s on attorney's fees, to draw up the language and draw up the contracts in the first place, the interlocal contracts that actually created Next Michigan. So the point is that, it's a very small amount of money, and it's a way to get this program going, which hopefully will then, create economic growth, in the targeted areas.
John, the $19,466, is that the totality that's in the restricted EDC fund we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
That's the total amount.
Yes.
Anybody have any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yep.
Richardson?
Yes.
Lemko?
Yes.
Henschel?
No.
Inman?
Yes.
Gilman?
Oh, no.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Maxbauer?
No.
Chairman Flees?
No.
Passes 5-4.
It passed, right?
5-4.
Yeah,
Sorry.
passed 5-4. Next item on the agenda is Next Michigan Development Corporation Board Appointee, page 17 of your packet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm concluding that they're looking for the county commission to appoint a representative on Next Michigan, because we would have a seat on that, and you're looking for specifically a county commissioner. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, it is.
So, the only rationale I have behind my recommendation is that given that the person that would be, that has been assigned to the County Economic Development Corporation, and their duties, my understanding from your last discussion, would be diminished extensively, because you wouldn't be looking at applications every day. It would be the next Michigan board. And currently Ross Richardson is the person that's assigned to that position. I would make I would move that we extend that offer to Ross Richardson to be the county commissioner on the next Michigan Development Corporation
Support.
board.
Chris?
You want to do it?
I'm willing. I mean, he's right about the EDC. We've gone from a monthly meeting to about
Well, if you want to
meeting
do it,
every
I'm
3
willing to
months.
vote for you.
I mean,
I'm
if somebody,
just
I mean,
asking.
on the other hand, if somebody else wants it, speak up,
Not me.
by all means.
I heard the train coming.
Okay, all in favor of appointing,
We can have some
Jason?
discussion, or?
yep,
Okay, it's one of those things. The last item was financial diligence. And so we're going to have to take a roll call on this, because I have an objection to the entire next program. I don't like authorities. I think authorities are generally another level of government that are next to impossible to remove. In fact, I don't know, maybe somebody can fill me in on an authority that's ever been disbanded. I don't think you're going to be able to do it. So, in any event, I generally would prefer we don't participate. I think that probably Ross is the logical choice, given the EDC participation prior, but I'm going to vote no, simply as a conscientious objection to the program.
Dick?
I'm going to vote for Ross because he's willing to do it.
It's high on my list, too.
However, I would really rather see somebody that doesn't represent the township of Blair, East Bay, or Garfield. And you have East Bay, right?
No, I have
City.
part of Garfield now,
Part of okay, part of Garfield.
but if I'm reelected, I will not.
No, you'll have Peninsula then.
I'll have the peninsula
Well-
instead, so.
But he'll
But
still
he'll
have
still
I got no
Traverse
big-
City, though.
I got no big problem looking at this to spread
Yeah, and we all.
things around, but I might be sticking my own foot in my
Yeah,
mouth.
we'll have the new assignments
So you're volunteering?
next year anyways,
No,
after
I'm
the
not.
next.
I mean, I will say the appointment's only until the end of the year, so.
Yeah, conflict of interest, I can't do it.
Rob?
Does the motion include the term of the appointment?
Yeah, through the end of the year.
Yeah, but you didn't state that in your
Yeah,
motion.
Clerk have that in the motion now?
Yeah.
No, actually, it says right in the bottom.
Right here on the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion? It's to appoint,
Through December 31st, 2012.
pardon?
Through December 31st, 2012.
Yeah, it's to appoint Ross Richardson to the next Michigan board to expire on 12/31 of 12. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lundpool,
Yes.
Henschel,
No.
Inman,
Yes.
Gilman,
No.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Axbauer,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yep.
Richardson,
Yes.
and Chairman Fleece.
Yes. Congratulations, Ross.
Yes, Rob.
Thank you, John.
Never turn down a volunteer.
Okay, Mr. Bott?
Okay.
You're on.
Good. We have some financial information here for our general fund through the first 2 months of 2012. That is, starts on page 18 with a trial balance on page 19. Probably the most important part of this topic, though, is the revenue and the expenditure summaries on page 20 and 21. We'll start with the revenues on page 20. The first column is obviously for the month of February, but then the second column for the year is 2012 compared to the same 2 months of the previous year. And it's good to see that the revenues through 2 months are greater than they were through 2 months of last year. And that's not all due to the fact that February had one more day.
But that was important.
It was important, especially in the Register of Deeds operation, but the most...
That's the only way I get a birthday.
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
It's all his birthday cash.
He's 4 now.
There's no, at this point, I really can't determine if there are any significant budget variances. I can only explain what's here. We'll know next month, when we get our equalization report, what our main revenue source, the tax revenue, will do, and that will be important that we spend some time on that. But the state grant revenues are higher due to the timing of the judges' salary payments that we receive. It's strictly a timing difference. They came in February this year, March of last year. The local unit contributions is a timing on an MSU grant. No budget concern there. And then the charges for services revenues are higher because of increased receipts in both the Register of Deeds office and our courts, primarily the circuit court. So those are all positive things to report on the revenue side. The taxes, very limited tax tribunal and board of review activity through 2 months compared to the same 2 months a year ago, but we did receive and pay a good number of tax tribunal adjustments today, so they're still out there. It's uncertain as to what that budget impact will be for the balance of this year. And it was a little over $210,000 for 2011. It's a big number. If you look at page 21, this is the expenditures. The big item, the big variance is the transfers out, and that is a timing difference. I did not record the first quarter appropriations until March in 2012. They were recorded in February of 2011, so that's strictly a timing difference. The general government difference of approximately $95,000, nothing of real significance there. The largest component of that, however, is the reduction in our facilities management department due to the personnel reductions that were made as part of the 2012 budget. So unless there are any questions, that's all I have at this point. I did want to walk you through the budget amendments real quick, starting on page 23. The two on this page are both mental health court grants that are carried over into 2012. These grants were approved actually in 2011, and we're just increasing or amending the 2012 budget to show the amount that carries forward into the current year. And then on page 24, it's a similar situation. This is the Housing Trust Fund grant from the federal government. It's a HUD grant, and again, this is the balance that carries over. The grant was received in 2011, but this is the amount that's carrying forward to the 2012 budget.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as presented.
Supported.
And moved and supported to approve the budget adjustments. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion's unanimous. Furlough.
Yep. The next item, Commissioner Max Bauer expressed concern over the fact that we had budgeted for furlough days in the 2012 budget. I've explained here that was a provision of $200,000. We have adopted a furlough policy that was earlier this year, but we have not had we have not negotiated that with any of the bargaining units at this point. So the concern would be whether or not we would realize those savings either through negotiating that benefit or from some other means in the budget to obviously avoid a shortfall. And what I'm doing at this point is simply looking at projected personnel expenditures and trending that out over the remaining payrolls, and I'm conservatively estimating that we would realize a budget savings of $320,000 at this point, which would cover the $200,000. We had also budgeted a provision for the MERS defined benefit contributions, and at this point I'm estimating we've over budgeted that cost by $175,000. So we appear to be okay at this point. And the one last comment I would make is that we really only have, I think, one contract that we're going to negotiate later this year, so if we did go back to the bargaining units, we'd have to ask for that. I believe that's not something they're going to come to us and volunteer.
Chris and then Larry.
The reason I brought this up is, the board did vote to ask for furlough days. And I think that it would behoove us to either reaffirm that decision or accept the fact that we've got enough cushion in the budget where we don't need to begin negotiations. But I think, as contracts come up, I think we need to give staff direction. And, if the board chooses not to pursue furlough days, fine, but I think we need to have that discussion sooner rather than later.
Larry?
During budget discussions, and Jen, you're going to have to help me out with this, when Dennis was here, and we got into discussion about this, that I had brought up an example that, for example, my previous employer, they passed a policy within their personnel area, or human resources area, that with the departmental approval, an employee of the bank could take up to an additional 5 days on top of their sick days. We call them FTEs, that, sick days or personal days or whatever, we combined them both. They had so many days to take off, but if they wanted to do an additional 5, and it was voluntarily done, that they would not get paid for those 5 days, and it just needed the department head's approval. And it seemed, my recollection is that was something that that you and Dennis had grabbed onto as a possibility of offering our staff members, including the people that are in our bargaining units. And I'm just wondering did we just kind of drop it, or do you think it's a good idea to move forward with it?
No, we created a policy. You guys approved it in January. Furlough policy.
So we do have
Correct.
a furlough policy that they can voluntarily take it off?
Yes,
And-
yes.
and
With approval of the county administrator is
okay.
how it was set up.
All
Yep,
right.
it's in
And we're-
place. It came through in
And we were
January.
hoping for some people that, wanted to, they could take it.
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
yep, no one's come forward.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay.
Actually, wait, we had one. I take that back.
Okay.
Sonny and then Rob.
Well, I guess two things about this. One, I think what we heard when we were having the discussion about the furlough policy is we heard very well from the business managers of the bargaining units that they didn't accept the offer, and then we were going to have to negotiate, and they wanted something in place of it, which we weren't prepared to give. I think that's, if my memory is correct, we heard very overwhelmingly from the representatives of the different bargaining units that they weren't interested in a furlough policy unless they were getting something in exchange. And then the $175 savings on the defined benefit, Dean, is that because of the fact that we're frozen for 3 years?
That has a large part to do with that. And you're correct. 2012 is the second year of a 3-year freeze on our funding.
Rob?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Commissioner Maxbauer for having the discussion here and bringing this up, and I'm glad you did. I think we need to discuss this and be very mindful of our budgetary situation. I was just going to suggest that perhaps when we're doing these labor negotiations, that we have a mechanism in those contracts, whereas under certain financial situations, we have the ability to do furlough days, and the level to which those financial situations are dire, that's what you negotiate is, how bad does it get before we say, hey, we're closed for an extra 3 holidays this year, or something along those lines.
Yep. Absolutely. That would be the provision that you would negotiate. We don't have, the word furlough isn't even mentioned in any of the labor contracts, so that's exactly what I would foresee as well, Rob.
Thank you.
Well, the other piece of the problem with that, though, is it's easy for us to sit here and talk about furlough days, but we have a certain number of departments that are mandated to be 24/7 operations, and we cannot furlough those because we simply cannot cover the emergency services without them.
Well, you might be able to furlough them, but they might be covering that with overtime.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't save you any money.
Just to clarify that.
Right.
Jen, we have only one contract that we're negotiating this year?
Correct. We only have one that expires at the end of this year, so we'd be negotiating that in June, July timeframe.
And next year, our contracts expire the end of 13, correct?
We have them, I think we have 3 that expire at the end of 2013. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's 3 of the 11 expire. 1 expires at the end of this year, 3 2013, and the 8 in 2014.
Okay.
Does that add up right?
Yeah, because I
To
thought
11?
those are 3-year
No,
contracts.
maybe 7. Anyway. Yeah. Sorry.
What I would like to see is, I attended the Lynlaw County Board of Commissioners meeting last night, and Tom Menzel and Kerry Thompson were there putting on a presentation, a beta presentation to the board. But I sat through their meeting, and Mr. Menzel brought it to the board's attention there on how Beta had negotiated with the Teamsters a contract that's directly related, the raises are directly related to the, in our case, it would be the tax income we have coming in. And if it's like it has been the last couple of years, well, it goes the other way. I think that's a good idea, and I would like to see you as the HR director perhaps meet with Mr. Menzel sometime and find out exactly how he put that together. Another thing he did was unions file grievances sometimes for harassment purposes of management. And what he did is he negotiated into the contract, if you don't prevail, you pay the cost of the arbitration. If you prevail, you don't. And to me, that's another money savings. And the grievances at Beta have dropped dramatically. They have like 75 employees, so. But I think it's worth pursuing, particularly as a taxpayer of the county. Chris?
Well, I couldn't have said anything any better myself, so. That's it.
Well, you brought it up. I was going to ask if it'd be appropriate to bring up contract thing right now. But since you brought it up and you happen to mention somebody who I have great admiration for the way he handled his contract, I think there's a lot to learn from Tom Menzel. One of the other things that he did was, and I'd like to see this from our contract negotiations, is something that even the governor just the other day did with regard to the school employees, and that's prohibits the schools from withholding union dues. In other words, it makes the MEA send a bill to the teachers directly. Now, they're still paying the same thing, but they need to collect it from the teachers. It does a couple things. Makes them accountable, and it also saves us, or saves, in that case, it'll save the schools the administrative costs, ultimately, of handling the dues collection. And so going forward, and I think that's a big one. I think that's a really big one. Going forward, I'd like to see that in the contract negotiations, since you brought it up. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
No.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Civic Center South appropriation. And for our new commissioners, when I was just a pup as a commissioner, I was appointed to the Civic Center board. So I promptly went down there once I found out I was supposed to attend those meetings. And Virginia Olds, who I replaced, had 16 years on this board. Conversation came up during the meeting. The board members looked directly at me and they said, Larry, we'd like you to talk to the county board about an appropriation. And of course, being green, didn't know how to proceed or anything, I met with Commissioner Thomas. And he gave me some good insight, and not only that, the next meeting, he went with me. And we went right over, and of course, Virginia was on the board down there at that time. And Dick had sat on the board with her many years, but anyway, Dick just kind of took over in a grandfatherly fashion and guided me through the necessary steps, and that has been very successful. And in essence, the history of it is, we agreed, the board back then agreed to make a $25,000 appropriation for 5 years, and this is the 5th year. And tonight, present here, we have some representatives from the Civic Center South Board that they'd like to tell you what they're going to, if we appropriate the $25,000 this year, what they're going to do with the funds, and of course, you can ask them any questions you wish also. And would you introduce yourselves, please?
I'm Joanne Oger, a Fife Lake Township trustee. I know most of you. I'm a former county employee and former city planner.
I'm Jeff Chopik. I'm also representing Civic Center South as a secretary on the board, and I do know some of you as well also. I do have a statement I'd like to read tonight. Civic Center South Park has been progressing by leaps and bounds this year. 2011 was a landmark year for the facility for a number of reasons. First, the group overseeing the park became an official recreation authority. The authority is made up of 2 representatives from Paradise, Mayfield, Fife Lake Townships, and 3 representatives from the village of Kingsley. The authority truly represents southern Grand Traverse County and strives to provide quality recreation to the public. In 2011, 10 additional acres of property were donated to the authority by Carol and Jerry Inman. The Inmans also gave an additional 10 acres in 2012 as well. The plans for the new 20 acres are very conceptual at this point, but may include additional softball fields, disc golf holes, and perhaps even a driving range in the future. This spring, we will begin construction on a permanent outdoor pad that we will call a multi-use pad, and we hope to have that up in the spring and utilize it for skateboarding, rollerblading, and also skating, both figure, hockey. The project has been supported very graciously by the community as well. And I won't name names, but without their representation, the equipment, the resources in order to do it would be significantly higher. So we've been able to do this over the years with tremendous support from the community. I'm sure you know who those folks are anyway. Most of the labor, again, will be donated by local volunteers, including myself and another gentleman who's here with us tonight, Dave Robinson, in the back, and many other individuals, as we've rounded them up over the years, that come down and help on their own time. And they, of course, enjoy the quality recreation that this park provides. This past year, we brought on a contractual park coordinator who's also working with the YMCA and other organizations, again, to bring more awareness and activities to the park. Some events there include volleyball tournaments, perhaps, softball leagues, lacrosse, and rugby, again, getting our recognition out among the community to create greater awareness also. Moving forward, there are some great capital improvements coming along in the near future and great activities as well. The improvements this park has seen over the years would not have been possible, again, without support from the county. We do thank you for that. The funds contributed have allowed the park to purchase ball field fencing, tennis court fencing, basketball court fencing, diamond dust for the Little League fields, site furnishing, and a lot more as well. The foresight and understanding the county commissioners have displayed by making an investment in recreation for county residents will pay huge dividends. And again, we thank you. The recreation is a key component in making a sense of place in the community, and we see that. And people choose to live in areas for the quality of life as valued by local officials, and it has been apparent that the board believes in a high quality of life standard. We'd just like to thank you for your current support, as well as your continued support in the future.
Thank you. I'd like to make 2 comments first, if I could, please. Number 1, I asked Dean to identify where the funds might come from, and I'll have him explain that if you would, Dean.
Well, my recommendation would be to do this without increasing our 2012 budget, and what that basically means is we're not going to increase revenues or increase our expenditures because it, 2 2/3 months into the year, that's not wise financially. But what you'd want to do then is look at cost centers or line items where we could reduce that line item to cover the appropriation. And at this point, the most conservative thing to do would be to look at either the board's contingency line item, which currently has a $100,000 balance, or the other area where I believe we're going to be safe, or we've appropriated a sufficient amount, is the child care fund appropriation. And what you would do then, if you were considering this appropriation, you would reduce that appropriation to cover this appropriation. That keeps the budget at the current level without increasing the budget or using fund balance. That was another, I would not be comfortable at this time budgeting additional fund balance.
And the last item is, I'd like to remind the commissioners that the closest county park to South County is on Keystone, the courts there. This is a regional park. Like Jeff said, they just this year finally completed the authority, and the reason for the authority is everything had, since its inception, has been run through the village of Kingsley. And it was always the idea that they would have an authority and take, be able to, Kingsley would get out from under the responsibility of it. The Inmans that he speaks of, Jerry's a retired school superintendent from Kingsley there, and like Jeff said, last year they gave 10 acres, which is contiguous, and this year it's another 10 acres. They're very gracious people, and the park, because of in-kind donations, and I'll name a few of them. There's Elmer's, several contractors. I mean, all of the labor virtually is donated on this, and there's guys like, for the older members that are here, Jack Rawlings used to come to the meeting and give the report, and Jack just spent countless hours on that park. So I would certainly appreciate your vote on the appropriation. Larry?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the county board appropriate $25,000 to Civic Center South for the 2012 year, and that the funds come from one of the two options that Dean has indicated to us at this committee.
Which one?
Either one. It's his discretion.
Dick?
Oh, at his discretion. Second that.
This does say that we would do it if they made the request. This is a request, right?
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Yes. Because maybe I forgot, being so old.
Your grandfather.
Sonny?
Well, I guess I have a couple comments. One, I certainly wouldn't support taking any money out of the child care fund. I have been at the end of the year and seen all of a sudden a family come in with 3 or 4 or 5 kids, go into the state ward program, and all of a sudden we're short big bucks. So I certainly would not support taking money out of the child care fund.
I'll amend my motion to take it out of the contingency fund.
Okay.
I agree with that.
The second piece of it is I will again reaffirm my absolute objection to this. I believe that this is recreational money. It needs to be taken through the county's Parks and Recreation Department. This is not a county park. It never will be a county park. They have no interest in having it to be a county park. We should not be spending county recreational monies on a project that doesn't come through the county Parks and Recreation Department. Back 20 years ago, we built soccer fields in Long Lake Township. When we did that, we made application to the county Parks and Recreation Department. We split the costs of soccer goals, but it all went through the Parks and Recreation Department. I do not believe it's appropriate for this board to make appropriations to any recreational development that doesn't come through the Parks and Recreation Department. That's why we have a Parks Commission. The Parks Commission, we've had this over and over in the last few years, where this board oversteps its bounds and takes things that are the authority of the Parks Commission, and this board makes the decisions. We should not be appropriating any recreational money that does not come through the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Jason?
Well, wow. Well, I know where we could get $19,466 from. You know, frankly, I understand what Commissioner Wheelock is saying. That's why we have a Parks Commission. However, there are ways to do things, and then there are smart ways to do things. One of the smart ways to do things is you leverage. You leverage where you can. And one of the things leveraging does, for example, we've got people who are volunteering time to operate a facility that provides value. You know, I'm a big supporter of general welfare. I understand the concept of general welfare. It isn't what everybody else thinks it is. This is general welfare. This is making sure that the community, as you say, has a place. This is truly placemaking, and oftentimes I think that word is overused in different ways. But this provides value for a part of the county that is often ignored by this board and often ignored, and they pay taxes. We do have the money in the contingency fund. It's likely at the end of the year, the $100,000 contingency fund will still have $75,000 left in it after this. I would support it. I think that when you start talking about the other organizations being involved, providing their resources at the same time, you got a lot of people coming together, in-kind donations, you got people donating property. This is something the community supports. And frankly, you know, this is one of those things where, yes, I'm not always against spending money, and there are times to spend money. This is one of those things, I think.
Larry and then Ross?
Well, first of all, I firmly believe whether this board or a previous board makes a commitment to help out on a project and gives a timeline of which they feel that it's important to give, that we should at least honor the voices of the previous commission. And two, we have the availability to do this. Second of all, you know, when I became a representative 10 years ago of South County, the first thing that I got an earful was, you know, we don't get the attention that everyone else gets in the more populated areas, and South County is not, you know, they don't feel they're getting their fair share in taxes in terms of a return. And, you know, when I brought up, you know, the contribution for Civic Center South and the fireworks and those kinds of things, that really softened things up a lot. And, you know, now they have a feeling, I believe, down in South County that, you know, we're sensitive to the fact that, you know, we need to do some type of attention or contribution down there to make up for the vast number of dollars that we spend, you know, in the major, more populated areas.
That we exist.
Huh?
That we exist.
And that we exist.
Thank you.
And that, just to make a remark on Commissioner Wheelock's point, he's, for the most part, I agree with his comment about, you know, for, you know, county parks, you know, if we're going to be involved in them, you know, we should direct it to county parks. But this board previously made a stand that said we were not going to recommend to the Parks and Rec Board, I don't even think the Parks and Rec Board recommended it, that we were going to create a second Civic Center South, the south part of the county, that would have to come from other appropriations. But in consideration for us not owning it and operating it and being responsible for the operating expenses, that we would do a 5-year commitment for the $25,000. But unfortunately, we had to break it out annually because we just do annual budgets, so we don't do 5-year budgets. So, you know, given I'm one of the commissioners that have been here for a little while, you know, I feel that, you know, in my heart that, you know, we should you know, continue on with our original commitment to these folks, and this would be the 5th and final year, and then we would have to have a discussion after that point if we contribute any more. So I will be voting in favor of this motion.
Ross?
First of all, you should be commended for forming an authority and creating a financial base to support the park. My problem with this is that it's not a county park. There are many township and city parks in this county. Why don't we give Peninsula Township some money for their parks? Why don't we give East Bay Township money for their parks? Why don't we give the city of Traverse City money for their parks? So that's an issue. Another issue is that we actually cut, during the budgetary process last summer, we cut $50,000 out of Parks and Rec. I mean, the amount of money that we appropriated to our own Parks and Rec department, our own county parks, was $170,000, which is $50,000 less than which was originally proposed, and even that originally $220,000 was less than what we had appropriated before. I've heard my fellow commissioners sit here and complain about how broke we are and what terrible shape we're in and how we can't do this and we can't do that, until, of course, we come along and find something we want to spend money on, and then it's, hey, it's no problem, we got the money, let's go. So I will not be supporting it either. It's not because I don't believe in, I have voted for this appropriation before. I think you guys are doing a great thing down there, it's wonderful, but we have to look at the big picture.
Well, I think if our Parks and Rec Commission over the years has been doing the job, this never would have happened. There'd be a park out there. So this is a failure of our Parks and Rec Department that has had volunteers step up to fill the gap and create community in an area that is devoid of county parks that they are paying for anyways. The people that live in this area, all these municipalities coming together to create recreation, they're paying into county taxes that pay for our county parks, and yet they have no representation out there. Seems like that started a few revolutionary wars over the years. Taxation without representation. And you know, another thing, just look at their volunteer corps. That's amazing. That's so commendable. Just, you know, good for you guys.
Thank you.
That, you know, we could find a lot of departments that waste money to put more money into, but this is a very minuscule amount of money to get a whole lot of return with that volunteer corps they have. And, you know, I think we're remiss if we don't support this kind of community initiative, people stepping up and grabbing a shovel. And just, I really appreciate you guys, and I wholeheartedly support you.
Thank you.
Herb? Yeah, you know, I also commend you guys for doing what you're doing. I represent Garfield Township. They wanted a park. They went out and taxed themselves for doing it. They put the park together and they got a fabulous piece of property and they have a great recreational facility. That's representing by taxation for those people that want to do it. I'm really concerned that this was not brought before our budgets. It should have been put in the budget. If we were a 5-year commitment, then it definitely should have been here. We should have had that discussion here. I'm concerned that if we open this door for this organization, that we're going to open the door for about 4 or 5 other organizations that we cut. And if we say that we got some money that we can put into a non-budgeted item, something that was totally ignored during our budget process, then we're going to be opening it up for other organizations to come forward. And I'm concerned, and I'm very sorry, but I have to vote against this.
Sonny?
Okay, you know, I certainly want everybody to know I commend Civic Center South. I think it's a fabulous facility. Everybody's done a great job down there. You know, my problem is the fact that this has never been, to the best of my knowledge, it's never even came as an application to the county's Parks and Recreation Program. It's always come from the county commissioner directly to this board, which is, you know, circumventing the process. But, you know, and it's always, to the best of my knowledge, it's always been funded out of the Commissioner's Contingency Fund. It's never been a line item budget. Ross is exactly right. Over the last 2 years, we've cut $75,000, $80,000 out of the county's Parks and Recreation Department's budget, maybe more than that. And yet, we're still back here with a non-budgeted item asking to fulfill a $25,000 commitment to recreation to a non-county park.
Larry?
Well, 2 points. One is I take objection to Rob Henschel's comment that Parks and Rec failed in not providing a civic center or providing and going in the direction of a civic center in the south part of the county, because the county board had a discussion, and I believe Parks and Rec agreed that based on the financial condition of the county, we were not in a position to fund a second civic center, because we just, at that point in time, the civic center was originally in the city's name, and, we kind of took it over from the city. So, I take exception to demeaning the Parks and Recs department for not taking over this section. It just bothers me greatly that someone would ever mention something like that. Second of all, this was budgeted, this was a line item that was requested in the 012 budget. It was a line item requested in the previous budget and the previous budget before that. And when we got down to our budget in before October, we didn't know what kind of year we were going to walk into, and so we decided to pull it out. And I remember the discussion that said, let's wait and see how the year develops, and if we have a comfort level and a margin where we have availability for the funding, we should bring it up and take a look at it. And that was the discussion that this board had. So it didn't take it off the table. It said, let's relook at this thing, and if we have the availability during the year that we have a comfort level with, we can bring it back, and that's exactly what Commissioner Fleece is doing.
10 weeks into this year, we do not know what our fiscal responsibility is for this year. There's no possible way, 10 weeks into the year, that we know what the status of our 2012 budget is going to be.
Well, number one, in my opinion, as the commissioner that covers a portion of Civic Center South Authority's area, Commissioner Inman's the other commissioner, it's a regional park. Ross, we don't, and I think I agree with you, totally inappropriate if we were funding city parks, Garfield Township parks, Blair Park, where I live. That's all done through Blair. That's why Civic Center South, if you stop and think of the miles and the length of time and the volunteerism that has created that park, and the commissioners need to think of one more thing. Don't you think the name's a little funny? Civic Center South? There's a reason for that. It's because, like Rob said, somebody years ago dropped the ball and it was forgotten. But Peninsula Township, we don't appropriate money to any township park. I would never come here and ask for money for Blair's Park. I just wouldn't do it, because I understand everybody would have their hands out, and we can't possibly do that. Chris?
I think the County Parks Department could take a lesson from you, and I will be voting yes.
Thank you.
That's a first.
Any other discussion? Dick?
One thing, they've done one great job down there. That's all I'll say.
We did have an excursion where, and I can't remember, the years kind of blend together, what year it was where the commissioners met down there and toured the park. And I know Chris was there for sure.
I was there.
You were there. And I think the people were impressed, It's a nice park, and with the plans they have now, it's really going to be nice.
I don't think the question is whether it's a nice park. It's a question whether or not it's appropriate for us to fund it.
But Sonny, I would have to disagree with you saying the Parks and Rec ought to handle it. Why would the county Parks and Rec handle an appropriation to a non-county park? It's got nothing to do with the county, as far as parks. It's got to do with this county board of commissioners sitting here, and we govern or represent all the people in Grand Traverse County. That's why I brought it to this board, and I think Dennis Aloya, when he sat down with Dick and I, that was the method that he told us to approach, and that's what we've done. Jason?
In going back to whether or not we would have, let's just pretend like this didn't exist. Okay, let's pretend all this work hasn't been done. Let's pretend that nobody's made an effort to build a park, and then somebody here on the board says, you know what, I think we should have a park that serves Southern County. Now, we'd say to our Parks Department, what can you do for us down there? They find a piece of property, they say, somebody's willing to donate us a piece of property. Great, good start. We could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars maintaining what they're doing, or we could spend $25,000 and have it done for us and get the same service for our citizens. I think it's a pretty easy choice. Like I say, there's ways to do things, and then there's smart ways to do things. This is a smart way to do things.
They also don't have any paid employees, and what's the Parks to Camper trailer there, the caretaker?
Oh, now you're putting us on the spot?
Anyway, it's George Drew and George and Polly Drew. And what goes on there is they're the caretakers during the summer. They winter in Florida. So they have a camper type trailer, and it's parked the same spot in Civic Center South and they'll be back, and they come generally about the middle of May 1st. And they're there all summer. They take care of that park, and they also take care of Mayfield Pond for Paradise Township. But anyway, George and Polly do a good job. They do all the maintenance that they can, sometimes they have to get an electrician or something like that there. But if my memory serves me correctly, you know what their annual take is on this, besides having a place to park? I think the authority pays them $1,800 a year, isn't that correct?
You're right.
Yeah, and it just got to $1,800. It was less than that. And that's for two people. Jason makes a good point, if this appropriation was being used for the day-to-day running, or they were paying for employees, they're not. So, again, it's a volunteer deal. Are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Fisher Richardson.
No.
Lemko.
No.
Henschel.
Yes.
Inman.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
Wheelock.
No.
Max Bauer.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yep.
Chairman Fleece.
Yes. Motion passes
6-3.
6-3. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, fellow commissioners. We appreciate it. Us South County people.
Yeah.
Us old people.
Southern
Yes.
boys. The southern
And the
people.
old people
The grandfatherly one.
What did we just vote on? I forgot.
Okay.
Give them some more oxygen.
Next item is something near and dear to Supervisor Lyle from East Bay Township's heart, and it's the East Bay Assessing Contract Extension on page 27 in your packet. And would you please come forward, Bob and Glenn?
I've been sitting through Glenn's board review hearings for the last 4 days.
If you guys would introduce yourselves.
Yeah, introduce yourselves, please.
Glenn Lyle, East Bay Township Supervisor.
Bob Vandermark, the Grand Traverse County Equalization Director.
I guess as you can see, we were asked about the contract that expires June 30th, 2012, where the county supplies assessing for East Bay Township. I had taken it to the board and asked that we extend it till the end of the year. The county's year and the township year is a little different. There's still quite a bit of input to be done, but every building in East Bay Township has been gone through, measured, and this year I can thankfully say was the best year for Board of Review that we've ever had. I think the most we had one day was 8 people. Almost unheard of. And that's a testimony to the type of assessing that we have got done with the county and their hard work. I would ask that we extend the contract until the end of the year. By then, hopefully, most of the stuff will be put in, and then everybody can take a step back and decide, is it something the county wants to do? Is it something East Bay wants? I can't speak for the board. I just would like to see us finish out the project, and we're close enough now that I think we will be able to finish it out.
Herb?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Contract.
Sonny?
Well, nobody's surprised. I absolutely oppose this contract. Statutorily, the assessing responsibility for the township, it lies with the township supervisor by state law. There's a checks and balance procedure in place, whereas the township is responsible to do assessing, the county is responsible to do an equalization, and the Michigan Tax Tribunal has oversight over both. When the county does the assessing in the township, we lose the checks and balance. And I have always opposed this contract. I've been very, very verbal about opposing this contract, and I continue to oppose it. I just don't believe it is right for Grand Traverse County to do the assessing for East Bay Township. And that being said, I don't care how many times we crunch these numbers, I know very well that there are county dollars being used in hours, in staff time and office time, being used to assess East Bay Township that are not being charged to East Bay Township.
Dick?
Well, I agree with Sonny, except I'm philosophically opposed to having the equalization department do the assessing for a township unless they do it for all of them. Otherwise, some townships are not going to get what I would call a fair shake, and even the residents of East Bay. You have what's called, I forgot. Due process. Board of Review is part of that. The State Tax Commission is part of it. It all fits together, and if somebody wants to talk about it for 4 or 5 hours, I will, but philosophically, I am opposed to doing the assessing for East Bay unless we do it for the whole township, or for the whole county. And that would be a different story. The last time when we did this, I was opposed to it then. The difference is that now, if we want to do it for the whole county, I would budge that much.
Larry? And then Ross?
Well, my recollection on this thing is that, the primary reason we stepped forward and we worked with Glenn Lyle was that, he got elected into a deteriorating fiscal situation at the township. And we had the expertise, and like Dennis said, his philosophical reason and mine met exactly together, and that was, if the county can come together and help out a partner and fellow partner in township government or village government or city government to assist them with some of our services to get them back on their feet and help them in a certain area, then we should be able to, really look strongly at that and try to assist them. And I've always, as an elected official, I've always had that philosophy of, we're not only here to serve the County Board of Commissioners, but, we're here to help the community, and anytime we can partner with any local unit of government to help and assist them, I'd be happy to do. And my understanding, it was until such point in time that they got their arms around the thing, and Glenn says they're about 75% done, so that makes it reasonable to me that, by the end of the 012, that it would be completely done, and then Glenn can do an assessment, and maybe he doesn't need to have the county come back and do the arrangement. But I just want to make sure our equalization director is comfortable with that situation, and if he is, I'm ready to vote yes on this.
Could I make a comment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've had a fair amount of experience with county assessing.
Could you state who you are for the...
Pardon me, I'm sorry, I'm Robert Vandermark. I'm the Equalization Director for Grand Traverse. I apologize for not speaking up. But I've had some experience doing county assessing, and I have some knowledge of county assessing around the state. County assessing is specifically provided for and encouraged by state law where the local unit of government wants it and where it results in better assessing. It's strictly voluntary. It's a joint effort between the counties and the local units. Now, I did work in Oakland for a number of years. There's 53 assessing units there, 27 of them contract with the county. There's probably 35 assessing units in Wayne County that contract with the county. There's a number in Grand Rapids, Kent County area, Nuevo, Muskegon, where that happens. It is a minority of units of government in most places, but it works out, and the reason that it happens is because it ends up being beneficial to the townships and cities and also beneficial to the county, and most importantly, it's beneficial to the taxpayers. County assessing should not be done unless, number one, the unit of government wants it. Number two, it results in better assessing and fairer assessments. And it results, three, better taxpayer relations with the taxpayers. And I've been sitting with Mr. Lyle and his board review, and I've sat through hundreds of other board review for myself. But what I've seen happening with the project in East Bay, we have, working jointly with the township, established some of the best taxpayer relations that I've ever seen. Taxpayers understand what is happening. They don't all love their tax bill, but they know that it's fair and they have respect for the system. And it's working out very well. And I would recommend doing it when it really does result in those things. One thing I can tell you about me personally, I also have a choice as a director whether I want to be the assessor of a unit of government. I've never taken one where it didn't result in good assessing, and I've never taken one where there was a good local assessing operation performing well. I've turned them down. I turned down the city of Ferndale when the city manager begged me to do the assessing, but they had a good operation, functioning professional department. It would be, I just thought it was, I mean, we could have done it, but it would have been outrageous to do it. But it results in better assessing. Now, what's happened here in East Bay is you had a court order, or a tax commission order, I'm sorry, reassessment occur because it was truly a mess. And Mr. Lyle knows that. The township board and Mr. Lyle had the good sense to say, hey, let's solve our own problem together, working jointly with the county or whoever else we can work with to get this taken care of and have it run correctly. When unfair assessments exist, let me tell you what happens. It results in higher taxes for the taxpayers that are assessed fairly. And that's direct and it's immediate. Just as sure as you send the fairly assessed taxpayers a note and said, there's a lot of errors and omitted property and all those things, it results in higher tax rates for your debt service, for your police functions, for your library functions, and whatever government functions are going on. And we really appreciate you fairly assessed taxpayers and being willing to pay that little bit extra so that we don't have to clean up this mess. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's just that direct. And, I mean, if you really want to lay your cards on the table, if you got a mess, you got to tell your taxpayers that. At least thank them, for heaven's sakes. And I'm just giving you my honest opinion. The township does pay the cost here. This is a time and materials contract. We bill for the labor and hours of material that's used for this. It is a township responsibility. But we are helping them working jointly together. Now, there are, one thing else I want to add, there are economies that exist because we're working together. When we equalize, I have to build land values, do land value studies, East Bay and the whole county. I have to build economic condition factors, which are analyzed as sales and compares them to the mass appraisal system values that I have, and I have to do that for equalization purposes. I also have to operate a computerized mass appraisal system, which is fairly sophisticated. We have to do that for equalization purposes. East Bay Township needs the same things to do assessing. Having us work jointly together really makes for a more efficient operation and less duplication of effort for both governments. And that's true. And that's frankly why Oakland County over time decided that, hey, we are going to do this, provided the townships and cities want it and work with us and are glad to have the service. I've had one town, I'll just tell you, I'm gonna take up too much time here, but I had one township, Oxford Township in Oakland County. They bid out their assessing to a private contractors, and they asked the county to present bids. And I know all these people well, the whole township board. They got bids from private contractors to come in and do assessing for half what we would charge at the county, and we charge time and material. Bottom line is, they went and did that. After the second year, the whole township board was sitting in my office begging me to take over the assessing because such a mess had been made over about a 2 or 3 year period. And if you want to verify some of those things, I can give you a list of 20 townships that have county assessing that'll tell you that, I mean, the township officials will tell you directly what's happened. And it dramatically improved taxpayer relations and everything else to have that done in that one township. There are some good functioning townships that do a good job. And the last thing in the world I'd want to do is interfere with that. But for government to work together with the counties, the townships, and the cities to produce a fair product for the taxpayers so that they're not being unfairly treated. And they also just plain know what's happening and why. That's constructive. And it saves government overall money. That's my thought.
Glenn, up to this point, we've been on one-year contracts on this.
I was
The
thinking
current
a
one,
3-year
3-year,
contract.
yeah.
So June 30th is the end of a 3-year contract?
Correct.
Right.
And could you explain again why you want to just extend it for 6 months?
For the simple fact that I don't know what's gonna happen. We're gonna be looking at being just about complete. And I know when I originally came 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, that's what I had asked for. Let's get a complete reappraisal, get the records accurate. And, you know, if we look at this at the end of the year and we say, you know, now it's just maintenance, it makes sense, you know, we'll give you a bid for doing it. If that's what both boards decide works, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, my outlook has always been, you can hire assessors, you can contract assessors privately. All of a sudden, when they leave, who have you got to go back to? The county isn't going anywhere. The county's gonna be here as long as the township's gonna be there. So if I've got a problem, I know where to go back to. I mean, it only makes perfect sense, and that's the big buzzword now is government cooperation. Units of government working together. That's exactly what we started doing, but maybe we started before it became the hip thing to do.
You probably did. But
Jason?
Bob, in your estimation, I mean, of course, I lean towards extending this to the end of the year, finish the process and everything. But just in your estimation, does this process cost the taxpayers, you know, who aren't participating, you know, the townships that aren't participating, does it wind up costing them through the cost of the county? In other words, are we paying more than what we're expending in effort?
no, we're not. It's a break-even time and materials contract. And actually, in some ways, it helps the county because the ECF studies and the computer system we're operating for East Bay, we got to operate that anyway for county equalization purposes. So there's really eliminating some duplication of effort here on the part of the county and the township. It just works well from that standpoint.
I will say I am impressed, and I was at the board meeting where you were talking about the results of the Board of Review, and that's fantastic. That says a lot about happy customers, so to speak, you know, happy citizens, so.
You don't very often get a thank you.
No.
There's business, but you can gain respect and confidence on the part of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
Look, Ron?
Glenn, what are you, do you have any plans or ideas of reforming an East Bay Assessing Department, or are we going to be revisiting this January with a brand-new Board of Commissioners?
It's gonna be up to the East Bay Township Board. If I give you my personal opinion, I think the way we're doing it makes the most sense of anything, but I'm only one voting member of the board.
Okay.
So, If you ask me if I want to come back to the board, sure.
Okay.
But I don't know what the township board wants to do, and I don't know what the county board's gonna want to do. So my first thought is, let's get through what we started, and then we all take a step back and say, okay, what would it look like?
Okay. And I'm glad you got the memo on what color to wear tonight.
And one other minor side benefit, this does help us build a much better GIS system, because we have a much better information base to put in it.
Everybody understand the motion, Dick?
Well, I'll just say that as one of the last surviving township supervisors that ever did his own assessing, I'm still opposed to my philosophy.
Last of the Mohicans.
Does everybody understand the motion?
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I'm an old township supervisor who did his own assessing, by the way. I've had that experience, for what that's worth.
So the motion's to move forward to the end of the year.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
To continue the contract until 12/31 of 12.
Okay.
We better have a roll call.
Commissioner Henschel.
Yes.
Inman.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
Wheelock.
Oh,
Axbauer.
Yes.
Thomas.
No.
Richardson.
Yes.
Lemko.
Yes.
Chairman Flees.
Yes.
Congratulations.
7-2, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen, ladies. By the way, if any of you want to discuss some of these things one-on-one, come into my office or give us a call.
Riveting discussion.
Well, when I went into East Bay to pay my tax bill, Glenn heard from me. I whined.
I'll be down to see you.
I did. I go in and I gripe about my tax bill every time I go pay it.
Okay, next item is unfinished business. I don't believe we
I
have
did.
any.
No, I caught you.
Administrator search.
Now we have a county
Oh,
administrator.
well, yeah, that's right.
Administration.
Jen, you're up.
Jen, are you ready?
I'm ready, I'm trying to,
We did test it and it does work.
we did test it, and Larry was here, and it works.
And it's,
And I just wanted to show you, you're gonna see me up there, but.
oh, how nice.
So I don't have to be.
Oh, you're fine.
Come
You're
on.
fine.
I need to be my mic, but this, it will be full screen, and so we could do the Skype interviews right in here and portray them up here. The camera would be stationary, so I think you had discussed before having one person, whether that's me or one of you, ask the questions. That's probably the best thing in terms of keeping the camera where it is. So I just thought I would show you while it was up here.
Do you have dates that you're looking at?
That's up to you guys.
And as a backup, I can always Skype from the iPad, too. It's got a little camera.
Get a bigger iPad.
Right. All right.
So we got two questions. One is, how many interviews do we want to do? And the second one is getting the dates down. Okay.
Ross?
I think the question on how many interviews to do sort of centers over the fact that there is a tie for the final 5. So if you don't take the final 5, you end up with 12 candidates, and if you take the 5 who tied 13 through 17, we end up with 17 candidates. My personal recommendation is that we go with the 17, and if I can explain why, because I know Commissioner Inman has already told me he's worried that, that's just too many people. Well, wait a minute. My first thought my own personal thought through this whole process was just to cast as wide a net as possible, to let, the 9 of us bring as many people into the interview process as we could. So right off the bat, that says, well, maybe we ought to do 17 instead of the 12. And the other thing is that I've been doing a lot of research on the internet. Many of the individuals who have applied to us because they are currently out of work or between jobs or whatever, and the same names keep popping up for other jobs all over the country that some of these same individuals have applied for. It is possible that not all 17 of them will even be available. It is also very possible that not all 17 will even want to pursue it. I mean, there's a couple names on here that look interesting, but I can't for the life of me figure out why they would have applied for a job as a Grand Traverse County administrator. So did they actually apply themselves, or maybe a search firm sent their name in? I don't really know. But the point is that if we offered a 17, we might be lucky to get the 12 or 13 to actually do the Skype interview. So that's basically in a nutshell why I think we should go ahead and try to schedule 17 instead of 12.
I see a Richardson on here.
Yeah, that's my good cousin, my first cousin from, no, it's not. I didn't vote for him anyway.
I'm in complete agreement with Commissioner Richardson. I think we need to cast a wide net, and I still remember that one, all right. I still remember, so often an application looks better on paper than it is in person, and I still remember that one city manager candidate that everybody just was so hopeful for, and that candidate came in, and I had to get up and leave the room. The interview was so bad.
It was like scratching nails across the blackboard
yeah,
or something.
it really was bad.
Anyway.
And Commissioner Richardson made a number of excellent points. Not all these candidates are necessarily going to be available, and I just think that the 17, I think they're excellent. So let's hear from them, and I'm willing to take the time.
Sonny?
Well, I guess maybe I'm confused, because I'm trying to figure out where the 17 comes from. When I look at the total points, I either stop at number 14. If I go 6 or above, I'm clear up to number 13.
No, you have a bunch of them tied.
You have five of them are number 13. Actually, that should read 13 through 17 for those.
So it would be
those 5.
who
Bayer through Tree.
So my point is 6 points or above.
The points that come 6 or above is still only the top 13 candidates.
No.
Ignore the 13.
No, because you have
I'm
4.
confusing
You have
everybody.
5. You have 4 of them that. You have 5 of them that score 13.
Go to your left-hand column. Sonny.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But if I come down the points and I go to the bottom where it says 6 and I draw straight across, I'm at the 13th name on the list.
No, that's the 17th name on the list. Treat is the 17th name.
Yes.
There's multiple.
Yeah, because you have
Oh,
3. You have
more than one
I'm sorry.
13.
I see. We've got multiple
Coming to
numbers
you now.
over here. It's been a long week.
Took me a minute, too.
The only other point, I don't care one way or the other whether we do 17, 20 of them, however, but if I look at how many of these 51 applications that we read actually received any points whatsoever from a majority of this board, we're only talking about 10 of them. If we go down here, some of these candidates that you're asking to interview only received a vote at all from 2 commissioners out of the 9 of us.
Well, actually, if you look at the very last name of the 17, five different commissioners gave that candidate points.
I understand that. But the one above it received votes from 3 commissioners, the 2 above it, and then the 2 above that only received votes from 2 commissioners.
That's true, but those 2 commissioners gave them, the highest vote. So, I mean, again,
I don't care what the number is, it's not a scientific system.
Yeah,
There's no
I know
question.
that. Let's bring them in and, not bring them in, but, let's talk to them on the computer, and I think that'll sort itself out rather quickly.
If you don't like them, don't vote for them.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine. Works for me.
I'd like to see a scoring system.
Dartboard?
Well, before we start the Skype interviews, if you could just provide us some sheets and we can just make notes so that we have some kind of uniform, so we don't just do this again and then say, okay, call
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah, we need
A rating sheet.
a rating sheet with
something
your
like
questions
that.
that you're going to ask.
We have those. We use those.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
cool.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to save this whole thing from continuing
To digress.
digress, I'll make a motion that candidates that scored 6 points or higher that we schedule Skype interviews for, and then we can the second motion, we can agree on the dates.
Support.
Would you restate your motion again,
The
Larry?
candidates that scored 6 points, 20 points on the right side of the column
Or higher.
or higher, we would schedule a Skype interview if they choose to move forward with that interview, the applicants.
So you're in essence saying from, like Sonny did, 13 and up?
From treat on up.
Yep.
Treat on up.
Huh?
From
Treat on up, yeah.
treat,
Yeah. Okay, does everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
Ruth?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimous. You understand, Jen?
Oh, I'm
I
good.
know, I thought we should sit down.
Yeah, Jen, how long do you think each interview will take? Is it going to be 15 minutes, 10 minutes? I mean, are you going to limit these interviews to these people? Should we limit them? And then, when you're looking at 13, are we looking at 2 days, 3 days? What are we looking at?
17 people.
17.
17, I mean.
Yep, and I believe that the recommendation that Ross, that was approved last week was 15 to 20 minutes. So if we want to do them on the 20-minute interval, that's 3 per hour, so 17.
Only 5.5 hours.
5, yeah.
Assuming all 17 participants.
Assuming maximum.
So we could stretch it over a couple of day period, though, I mean, obviously, for their convenience.
Sure. I honestly would recommend that you do them close together so that you have the recency effect in terms of the candidates that you've interviewed. Instead of stretching it over a whole week, maybe 2 to 3 days. So that way it's fresh in your mind in terms of the candidates. Because 17, it's going to be, remembering candidate 1 when you're interviewing 17, you're going to want to make sure that was recent enough.
So if we do 3 hours one day and 3 hours the next day, that should give us plenty, and we do back-to-back days.
Sure.
Yep. I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we schedule the Skype interviews for Monday, April 2nd, 3rd, and if needed, the 4th, during the daytime.
2nd, 3rd, and what?
3rd and 4th of April.
What days are those? I don't have a calendar.
Those are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in the morning.
So it'll be the week after next.
Okay, could we take into consideration, please, that the first Tuesday of the month is in the morning at 9 is Commission on Aging's board meeting? I just don't want to have to be in 2 places at once.
So let's do morning for Monday
You
and
can do 3 of them
afternoon for
after
Tuesday.
1. You can do 3 of them after 1 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah.
2nd, 3rd, and the 4th, you can start at 1 o'clock. You can fit them all in.
Not to conflict with the regular scheduled meetings.
And it doesn't conflict with any of the scheduled meetings that
That
I'm
that
aware
we're
of.
assigned to. I
Yes.
think Commission on Aging is probably the only one.
I think so.
Yeah.
So
1
you're,
o'clock?
so you're saying do Monday at 1 o'clock and Tuesday at 9?
No.
The
the other way
opposite,
around.
actually.
The opposite.
Yeah. 1 o'clock for Tuesday, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, right? Would that be fine?
So Monday at 9.
All ones? Would you want all ones, or just do, we can do 9s on the 2nd, and then start at
Can I ask?
Can
1
we,
and the 3rd.
can we leave it open? Because I understand the Commission on Aging board meeting, so maybe anything after like 11 o'clock on Tuesday. But if I could get calendars reserved Monday, Tuesday after 11, and Wednesday, then I can tell you, because it might be 10 to
That'd be
2,
fine.
or it might be 8
that's
to
fine.
noon,
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
fine.
But just
Can
to
we
have
go
some
with- we can just
flexibility
go
with
with
the
that?
candidates, is
I'll
that?
support the motion.
Oh, yeah, the motion's the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and we'll have the Jen Seaman
Arrange the
send out
time.
a schedule.
Okay.
Everybody understand the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And Jen, you'll notify everybody?
Yep, absolutely. And I'm assuming you'd like to see interview questions ahead of time?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yep.
It's not going to be very many.
Yeah,
You only have 20 minutes.
You're mostly going to let them talk, to
Yeah.
basically do a presentation first, and then just a couple of questions after that?
Yep, yep, absolutely. But I'll send out an email with some questions, and you can send me some feedback, and
Okay.
we can go from there.
Good.
Are you going to make the questions available to them too?
No,
Just
that would
just
not
ask.
be,
That wouldn't be fair.
Well, I've seen it done both ways. I just asked the question.
I want to hit them. I want to hit them with their first thought and first response.
So
I'll provide them with some guidelines and parameters in terms of it's only going to be 20 minutes, Skype, those types of things.
20
but
minutes maximum.
20 minutes max, and, parameters, but not the questions that we would ask them.
Okay. Next item is unfinished business. I don't believe we have any. Next item is new business. iPads for commissioners, discussion, Inman and Max Bauer.
I'd like us to do this.
Let's hear your discussion.
I think it makes sense. I mean, if you take a look at the dollar figures, it's going to pay for itself in the first year for any commissioner that chooses an iPad. Quite honestly, I think we all need a push. But, that's just me. I mean, I need a push. This is my paperwork from meetings today. This is just today. And I've got boxes of this stuff.
I'll get you a waste paper basket.
Thank you. You ought to see my recycle bin. I mean, to me, it makes sense to move forward with, and it doesn't have to be an iPad. I don't care, a generic pad, whatever. But there's a better way than this. I mean, this reminds me of, Fred Flintstone had a better system than this. So, yes.
Larry?
Well, as I recall, we had discussed this previously, and the board worked with, Commissioner Henschel worked with Dennis Aloya as kind of a test situation, because he was really technically astute, and they worked together on this iPod, and to make sure that it uploads and it works right, and he feels comfortable as a user, that all the information he gets, and he can use it effectively, and so we wanted someone to test it initially to see how well it worked, and he can report on how he felt about it. And I think Dennis's thoughts was that that if it came out favorable, that any commissioner that wanted to get rid of the paperwork part of it, the county would reserve the money to buy them a similar iPad to load up and to use as their agenda. I will tell you that I went through this cultural change at Northern Michigan University. We had a booklet that was mailed to us, and what they did is they emailed the agenda to us, so we had time to review it on our email. I didn't print it because it's too thick. And then when I got there, they actually had a laptop waiting for us, and they actually had it on the screen as well in the boardrooms, and we just followed the discussion through our laptop, or we could look up through the screens, or we could jump ahead, if we wanted to, or whatever in the agenda, so we didn't have to carry something into the office and carry it back or whatever. So I went through a little culture change in using it, but I'm kind of from the old school, as you know, and I got this big Franklin planner and everything else in my life in here, and I do make a bunch of notes on paper, but I would be willing to give it a try. What I would prefer if I did one of those items is I would just get the email that Chris would send us on the agenda items, and then just have it here waiting for me when I get here. I don't want to carry it back and forth to the house or whatever, because I would always have it available on my computer at home, and when I got here, I could just use it as a resource to follow the meeting. So, I mean, I would just have it here and have the girls load it up is how I would do it. But my sense is, like commissioners like Thomas and stuff like that, if they want their paper, they should be able to have it by paper.
Dick?
You're not going to believe this, but I'm in favor of doing it. See, we got a man out here that might be able to teach me how to push the buttons.
Awesome. All right.
He's going to get a cell phone too?
I'm not opposed to it. What I am opposed to it is to have the taxpayers pay for them. If you want one, you buy it.
I don't know about that.
Well, then don't get one.
I think wasn't the analysis that over time.
I'm just telling you what.
Well, I guess what I'd like to hear from Don as to his recommendation, and I'm not, as astute as some other commissioners are, but I have been around them a little bit. I know I recently bought my daughter a Hewlett-Packard tablet instead of the iPad, and it was half the cost.
Fine.
I just...
We'll save it in
fact,
postage.
In fact, at Christmas time, he's now my son-in-law, bought a new laptop, and when he bought the laptop, he got the iPad for like $50. It wasn't an iPad, it was a Hewlett-Packard, but, Don can tell us about options in that regard probably better than any of us would know.
Hi, County IT Director Don Sheehan. Well, I guess I'm not really here to make a recommendation, though, either. I mean, I think it's really your choice. One of the questions I would have, though, is if IT is supporting the units, that we don't get a whole bunch of different varieties and try to support those. I mean, that's going to be very difficult. They're all, running different operating systems and everything underneath there, and so it'd be easier to come up with a standard method. Another option possibly, though, would be if you did want to purchase your own, and I talked to Dean just a little, whether like a stipend option would be something there too, to say if you do want it, that you would get paid so much a month to have that, to use it as a resource, and then it's really kind of your own device, and that way you can use it for anything you choose, but that it, I guess the agreement would be is you're going to give up the paper. That would be the other side of that.
Absolutely.
So, and what Rob has right now is, his is a Wi-Fi only unit, so we're not paying a monthly cellular fee for that. You can get them with the cellular connection, but we're not paying for that portion of it. So there again, though, if somebody said, I'd prefer to have my own personal and I'd like to have that service on there, is that your choice to pay for that service and have it available to you? So, I think overall, I don't think there's a lot of extra work, even if you split it and some get paper and some get the iPad. I had suggested that because right now they scan those packets on the copier, that's what turns it into a PDF. And I think one thing that would really make it usable is to build bookmarks into the packet, so for every agenda item. And that way you touch a button and your bookmarks are there that would jump you to every agenda item, especially if you're taking them out of order or something. It would make it real easy to navigate around in the document. So there'd be just a little bit of work on their part once they've done the scan and to get that out.
Don, I like the idea. Somebody made the comment that if we put it up on the screen here, that the people at home could see our agenda as they're going through the process. I don't know how well or how easy that could do, between switching from the agenda to looking at who the commissioners are and back and forth. But I think to be able to put the agenda up on the screen on a periodic basis so that the general public doesn't just get what we're talking about. They don't have a clue what our agenda is. And so unless they go into the county website, and I think it's posted there. So, they could pull it up that way. But if we had it during our meeting and we scrolled through it and then the camera could switch back and forth, I don't know if that's possible or if that's more technology than what we need. Personally, I really like the idea that if we're going to do this, that we purchase our own. I have a problem trying to tax the general public for having a computer being provided to me.
I'm not going to carry it back and forth.
One of the problems with the county paying for you is that anything you do on that other than county business, you're in trouble.
Right.
Chris?
Well, I've got 5 years of paper and 5 years of postage, and I can tell you that it is my belief that I could have bought every commissioner an iPad.
You didn't?
For the amount of paper, staff time, and postage that has gone into my meeting material. I have no problem with the county purchasing the iPad and me using it strictly, I mean strictly, for county business, period. And I'll tell you another thing that is an advantage is if anybody ever wants to see what county business is, all I have to do is hand it over. People don't have to come into my house and go through boxes. I think it makes sense. But, you know, if everybody wants to keep sending out, and this is just today. This is my 4th meeting today, and this is from my 4 meetings today.
Well, I think I established a long time ago, it's 1,000 pages a week.
Yeah,
It's 1,000 pages a week.
Well, I own an iPad and a laptop as well as my desktop, and I mean, the iPad's fun. Mostly use it to play online chess, quite frankly. My wife likes it. She likes to look at the real estate ads, but I mean, it has limitations. I mean, possibly other things with other operating systems might work better, but just before I came to this meeting, in fact, I tried to see if I could, go into went to the county website to see if I could, play back one of the meetings, that's on, and it wouldn't do it because, the county meetings are set up on window-based operating systems, and of course, the iPad is an Apple. And I realize that's not the only choice, but that was one of the issues. I did bring my laptop. I think the only time I brought my laptop here was when we were doing the budget last year. And it was very useful then because, of course, especially those of us who are commissioners know that the budget book is like, 8 feet thick and takes forever to find anything. It was much easier to find the information there. But generally speaking, I don't know, maybe I'm old school. I still like to look at stuff on paper. There's nothing stopping any one of us from, using the county website to get information on it. I mean, I have gotten to the point now where I throw my packets away because I know I can go back to the county website if I want to find information, or if I have to, I can, call, Linda or Chris in the office and, get them to find it for me. So I'm not going to go digging through boxes and boxes and boxes like you're talking about. But, if you want to use an iPad, you want to use a laptop, nothing's stopping you. But again, I just don't think it's something that county taxpayers should pay for.
Larry and then Rob.
Well, I'd like to just give Rob an opportunity because he was really kind of chosen as a test person to, determine the value of what he had and how it worked and how valuable it was to him. So if you'd like to make some remarks.
Yeah, certainly. I use this for my assignments as well. Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, huge board packets up to 300 pages, and your fun 6 to 8 hour meeting. It's great for that. Township board packets, last month East Bays was almost 200 pages. I don't got to carry anything around. I don't have a bad back. It's really nice. I recommend it. I recommend if you're used to writing notes, keep a paper agenda, just that 1 or 2 pages of the agenda, and then write your notes on the agenda for the items that you want to make a note on. And then you can flip through. I've had a couple chats. I had a meeting with Chris Kramer about how she could set these up so they'd be easy for people that are maybe not so technically savvy to find the pages we're on. We talked about putting a button on every page that'll take you back to the agenda and having buttons overlaying the agenda items so you could just tap it and boom, you're on that page. And if we can figure that out with the right PDF editing software, and I'm sure it's out there, it would be really slick. My recommendation would be to do this, but to do it also, once you get one, you're going to find there's so many things you can do on it that aren't county related. You're going to want to use it for other stuff, and I have to refrain because it is county property. You're not supposed to use taxpayer funds for things that are not county related. I would recommend we do a technology reimbursement to commissioners who choose to not do paper up to the amount of the cost of the paper. It will be cheaper for the taxpayers, and it'll allow some people to set the example by...
What the cost of that is?
What do these run?
I think the one, well, actually, this one here was $700. We bought a $100 wireless keyboard/case to go with it, so it was $600 without that, just the iPad alone.
How does the information get into them?
Well, actually, we can do some setup things, and there's a application that's free out there called Dropbox, where all Chris has to do is move the PDF into a directory on our server. We can link it to this Dropbox that's sitting out on the internet, and your account is linked to it, and actually it will just synchronize and pull it down when it sees it out there. So what you would see is basically you don't have to go to the county website or even get it emailed to you. It'll just show up on the
It's
unit
magic.
after she
That's all you
posts one
gotta
out
know.
there.
Just
It's
shows up.
magic.
Yeah, I don't have that
Just
available.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, I mean, you'd have to have wireless internet, say
I
at
don't have
home,
that.
We
in
have it
order
here.
for it to work.
I don't have any of that. It's not available.
He doesn't have internet.
Then you can get a cellular connection, you can pay for the extra.
Oh. Yeah.
Lucky
And
you.
then another question I
have
have,
internet
no,
at work.
seriously, I don't have any of that available at my home, period. Just not available.
Or
We're
you
in
live
no
in the
man's
dark
land
ages.
right down there for the 2 miles.
Don't either.
But the second question I have is, if it's county-owned and you're doing just county business on it, and it's FOIA'd, there's not a problem.
Yeah.
I wonder if you own it
Yeah,
and it's FOIA'd,
Just like your PC.
what happens then?
just like your,
Yeah, and I guess it depends on how much county business you're doing on it. You know, say if you're using your email that's web-based, or you have a county email account through our Google Apps now, I mean, that's all on the web. We have full access to all that without ever going to the device. The same thing's true pretty much of those agendas and everything. They're just copies of information that's already being distributed. I guess I don't know if you're making notes on them, or if you're storing other things, and that question could come up about, you know, what other content do you have on there. For the base things of what we're proposing, I don't think there'd be anything here that isn't already available centrally.
Well, I've seen on the media where they're using computers or iPads or whatever, and it became a FOIA-able issue because they thought there was violations being committed using that device. And if it's owned by the commissioner, is everything that's on it then? Even though they're looking for specific FOIA-able information, it's like doing your laundry and everybody's watching, correct?
Yeah, and I guess I wouldn't be the one to answer that question without some research or asking
Cooney
Bob
question.
Cooney or something, yeah, to say whether you would have to turn over your device and let them go through it.
Well, I think you would, and I'll go back to a search warrant. If I get a search warrant for your home, I show up, and I'm looking for a specific item, 38 caliber gun, okay?
Trip by my bed.
But guess what? While I'm looking for that, you know, you're only human, you get to see a lot more. And that's the question I have when it comes to electronics, see? So I don't know that I would want, not that I'm doing anything with it, but I don't know that I'd want to share that information. Like, what did I read today, I think, which I don't know what Facebook is. I've never looked at it, don't have any idea. But they were talking about employment interviews where Jen may ask an applicant, I need your, I think it was Facebook ID, so she could go in and look at everything that's on your Facebook. You know, I think that's a real can of worms. Is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they would ask you to turn it over. And I think that there was even one with one of the city commissioners where there was a suit and he was using it for the home computer for work email. And they said that he would have to possibly turn that over. I'm not quite sure how that got decided, but I thought that was the decision. If they wanted it, they would be able to look through it.
well, I guess I'll make this, I'll just stick my neck out here, just try to make a motion that maybe makes sense, is that I would move that if a commissioner chooses to have an iPod, that it would be...
iPad, not, iPod is for music.
I'm sorry, iPad. An iPad, thank you, that it be county-owned and that the county would pay for the item, and it would be their discretion to, you know, to either take the option of using it or using the current paper system. They would just get a hold of the interim administrator and make the arrangements to obtain one. And I don't see a problem with, for example, with Rob, for example, using it to download East Bay Township, because he represents East Bay Township, and for all his assignments that he's assigned to at the county, along with the county agenda items, that's fine, as long as it's just not used for personal purposes. But, so I'll make that motion that it would be county-owned and it would be specific to county-related business only, and it would be voluntarily requested.
I'll
And the
support.
county would pay
And the county would pay.
all costs associated with it?
Yes.
I'll support.
So, Don, in my case, I don't even know if there's technology available that will allow me to use that at my home.
Yeah, I mean, in your circumstance, you might have to have the cellular connection, which then adds additional monthly fees onto the cost, if you're not able to get DSL or cable service.
There's none of that available. So how expensive is, what would you call it?
The cellular service?
Yeah.
I think a couple of the plans were, you probably would need to be between the $30 or $50 a month for that service.
$600 a year.
So I think you'd make a decision. You
I
probably
can
don't
see where
want it.
this.
It's either that or you can go to a coffee shop where they got the hot spot and then you can, or you can come here. And you can do it here.
I think Culver's is wireless.
Oh, that'd work.
Now, the other question I got is, are we paying for the butter burgers?
I'm not paying for the butter.
You must have internet at your business.
At the business, I do, but it's very, in fact, ISND, I think they called it. You know what that is? It's a real old-fashioned slow.
Oh,
Like the dial-up?
ISDN.
Oh,
Yeah,
gee.
ISN.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we just got,
Probably paying $8 for that. DSL?
no, one above it, T something?
Oh, at T1?
T1. And they wanted $500 and some a month for T1.
Yeah.
But
My.
T1, I mean.
that's the only thing we have available.
You only get 1.5 meg on the T1, so they used to, but they're not anymore.
Well, compared to like.
They're pretty slow, the
DSL.
way I understand it, compared to what's available today. And what's really sad is a quarter-mile south of me, Kingsley Telephone has fiber optics with all the goodies on it. My 3 children that live in this area live within a mile of each other on 11 Road, 3 miles south of Buckley. And guess what they've got? Fiber optics with everything. Here I'm living in the metropolitan North County. I have nothing.
So you'll choose paper for now.
That's called, that's one of them. Pickups have different colored fenders.
Don, I guess my question, and I don't know if you put this packet together or whether Chris did, are you recommending the 16 gig unit or the 32 gig unit?
I haven't really looked at it, and I guess, maybe Rob's would be one to look how much storage you've used on that unit over the last year, and how many packets, do you really want to store on there? I mean, do you want your 5 years worth of packets stored
Yes.
on the device?
That's why they're in boxes at
Yeah,
home.
so we'd have to take a look at that and see what the
And
storage, I don't
notebooks.
really know right now.
My stack of paper is very high, but I do periodically sort through it and recycle it, because otherwise, my happy home would probably not be mine anymore. But because, it gets so high on my desk, and my wife, either you sort it or she'll sort it, and we don't want her to be sorting it. It's just the way it is. But all of this information in today's world is all available on the server. So as far as our packets and all of that information, I don't see any reason for me to continue to keep that stuff long-term. You're exactly right, Rob. I make little notes on on all of the margins in the agendas. Once in a while, I'll make some notes through the packet, but 90% of my notes are always on the agenda during the discussions. So.
Staff could just make a copy of just the 2-page or 3-page agenda and put it in our box.
Well, put it on the counter.
You can print your own.
Yeah.
Mr. Bott?
Well, I have to say I have more questions than answers with this. I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but I think this really requires a little more research, primarily because there are issues with, I think the first one is, should this be a county-owned piece of equipment, or should the commissioners own this personal? I think Commissioner Henschel brought up a good point. We've got obviously issues that we should discuss with Mr. Cooney. There's IRS concerns here. I believe this type of equipment would fall into the listed property, whereby that personal use might be taxable. And then fundamentally, a policy regarding use of this
we would have to get
equipment.
into that.
Granted, I would love to say that, yes, it's 100% county use, but that's pretty hard to enforce. And, you know, there's, for you to say that staff, the interim county administrator can look into this and come up with this is too big of an issue to just push it through tonight and say this is what we're going to do. We need time to look at some of these things. I'm sorry, but it really, give us some time to look at this.
All right, I'll just withdraw my motion.
Me too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. To answer the question, this is a 32 gigabyte, and there's capacity of 29 because the first 3 are the operating system, and available space 28.1 gigabytes, and I've been using it for, what, a year? So I think the 16s would probably be just fine because you can leave everything on the FTP server and not pull it all down, or you can delete what you don't need, and it's always right there at the touch of a button, and it can download it back down.
You have 29 available after the operating system, and you've only
And there's
used how much?
28.1 available, so I've used 0.9 out of 30, or out of 29.
In like a whole year.
I have a question for Don.
Yeah.
Chris?
Is that mostly little short 4-letter words?
Actually, it's about 300 pages of acronyms every month for Northern Lakes.
Yeah, God.
I'll give you an example. Our entire budget book, which is about as big as Commissioner Inman's whole thing there, that was 100 megabytes, okay? So this would hold 3,200 of those packets.
Wow.
So, I mean, it would fill a small room.
For a term?
Don, have the iPads, I don't know, I'm technologically challenged. Have the iPads come down in price now that new ones are out? Or can you get, you know, I still remember Jamal who, you know, bought furniture for her department on, was it eBay or something? She bid for $1 and then went downstate, picked it up and hauled it back. But can you buy used iPads?
I'm not sure, I'd have to look at that, and, you know, and then what kind of wear. But they did drop the price of the iPad to $400 when they announced the newer iPad, which they didn't really give a name to.
Second item was the new one. The first item was the new
Yeah,
one.
so the first one on the list there is the cheapest one that you can get, and then you go up from there.
Is that an iPad too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're coming out with the new ones. Another reason I like the idea of a technology reimbursement versus the county owning them is in 2 years, you know, there's going to be something maybe a little bigger, easier to use. They'll find some feature that will want the new ones for some reason. And that usually it's a good buy when you get the new unit because it does have a feature that makes it easier to use.
Yeah,
Well,
they
the whole
probably-
thing is they're talking about the new one has huge amount of, the screen is so much better to read for some
the
of us that are
graphics,
up to
yeah.
that age, that it has to get to that point where the screens, we need better screenage.
They call that,
They call those eyeglasses.
Did you hear about the heat problem?
Oh, we call it Braille, yeah.
Okay, everybody understand that staff's gonna look into it and report back sometime this year?
Fair enough.
Well, we don't want Dean just walking off in a huff, because then we'd really be in a pickle, so we
And
won't even put a
We'll let
timeline.
Commissioner Henschel still keep his, considering he has those 300-page packets.
Considering he's not going to give it back anyway.
He'll be my consultant.
I might trade you for that one. It's got a keyboard.
You might have to pay Chris for that.
Okay.
Don, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it. Thanks, Don. Next item is public comment. Is there any public comment? None seen? Commissioner committee reports. Herb?
Just to let everybody know that Garfield Township is doing brush cleanup between the 1st and the 14th in collaboration with the County Road Commission.
Chris?
The Commission on Aging Program Committee met today, and they are prioritizing programs that are performed by the Commission on Aging. We are, needless to say, in a continuing discussion about how to address the revenue shortfall at Commission on Aging, and in the near future, we are going to be asking for a joint meeting with the county board so that we can have a good, open discussion. But we're not anywhere near that yet. I mean, we're just in the preliminary steps, but I want to keep everybody informed.
Well, because of the packet, you all have the East Bay Township minutes in there. There's one thing I'd like to mention, is that they approved going forward with what happened this last Monday. This was the previous Monday, but they're going to go forward and do the corridor improvement authority, the CIA, for the Miracle Mile, something I particularly disagree with, but again, it's one of those things, you know, the authorities, the monsters that never die. So, in any event, there'll be a hearing, I think it's a public hearing April 20th, I believe.
It's April 9th.
Is it April 9th? I got to see.
Pretty sure it's April 9th.
I think it's April 9th, okay. And I wasn't there, unfortunately, Monday due to another thing, but, so.
Sonny, did you have something?
Just a reminder, because of the recent weather, the county is going to open the brush drop-off site this Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it's 9 to 2 that it will be open this Saturday. At this point, our seasonal employee has not been hired, so the last time I knew, Bob was planning on running it himself. So I've left a message for him that I would try to get there in the afternoon and at least help him for some of it, so. But, you know, we are going to open the county brush drop-off site from 9 to 2 on Saturday this week and next week, prior to its scheduled opening in April.
And you're going to come in at 1:30 to help him?
Probably. Not
Larry?
I was in visiting with Jen, talking about, you know, the proposed schedule on the administrator search and how, you know, make sure we were kind of staying online, and I have an unavoidable issue that I have to attend to that's personal in nature, and I will not be in town on the 12th through the morning of the 18th of April. And then I have to be in Lansing on the 19th for a state corrections board meeting, and I said to Jen, would it be professional courtesy after we get done with the Skype interviews to give the applicants that we want to come in and interview at least 2 weeks' notice for flights and travel time and adjust their schedule, and I think she thought it was reasonable or whatever. So we were figuring on, I just want to plant a seed that, you know, maybe the week of the 23rd, you know, I'm pretty much open, and that might accommodate, you know, the applicants. So, you know, we could, you know, at our next meeting or whatever, maybe we could talk about what would be a reasonable time to, once we do the Skype interviews, when we want to schedule the actual interviews coming in. And then if we can adopt it, you know, sometime in April, that would give that individual at least 30 days' notice. If he is employed, he or she is employed, and then they would be on board, you know, sometime in June. And that meets with the schedule that we had.
And
No, the
I
schedule you had, not
I
the
would
schedule
endorse
I
that
had.
as well.
Well, that was, no, that's the schedule that we presented with.
I want them to hear me.
Oh, okay.
I would endorse it as well, because I think I'm going to be gone during the middle of that same week.
I think I am
April
too,
18th.
but I need to go home and check my calendar to be
Yeah.
sure.
So, I don't know, Jen, do you want to,
Thank you.
we want to look at this at a later time, or do you want to have commissioners, you want to doodle something out that
Have it
says
right.
what's available?
Sure, the week of April 23rd?
Yeah,
Let me just send out a doodle
yeah,
thing,
that's what I was thinking.
or whatever. I mean, if we let the candidates know too, during the Skype interviews, then they can plan as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But I'm flexible, whatever you guys want.
Does that sound reasonable?
So just the last week in April, don't do it at night.
Yeah, it would be during the day.
Absolutely do not do it.
Yeah, it would have to be during the day, because I have a
Because
couple night meetings.
that's the Rotary show for the whole week, the last week in April.
And we would just have to work around the claims, but then I got an airport meeting, I could miss that.
All right.
Larry,
Yeah, I'm going to be gone that week.
You're going to be gone this week too, so, okay. Yeah, if you could, is that okay, Mr. Chairman? Do we should
Yes.
doodle out some time
I'll
scheduled.
need your name tag for the 16th of April, too. Because I plan on using your name tag instead of mine when I address the road commissioners that'll be here for their big conference at the Holiday Inn. And, Chairman Inman was going to give the welcoming remarks, but then he bowed out, and guess who got the job? So
Yes.
I plan on inciting a riot, so.
So it's going to be Larry Edmund for the day.
I owe you lunch, not a Culver's though, but another place we ate out in
2 years
Drawn.
ago, and the girl that works down there, she's still thanking me for it.
Well, I thought I would start out the remarks as Chairman Inman by saying you're all aware of the new legislation that passed on county.
Start off.
Yeah, the county kind of dropped the ball. We have an appointment for the Northern Lakes Board that's supposed to start the 1st of next month. One of the terms is up. So we're probably gonna, I don't know if we're gonna extend it for 30 days or something at the next week's meeting. Yeah, because it didn't get posted, we didn't get applications, we didn't form a committee, we didn't do anything we were supposed to do. And I don't know.
Well, the question is, did Northern
These
Lakes
things
notify?
Yeah, Northern Lakes did send recommendations.
I'll meet with
that-
Chris tomorrow on that.
But in addition, since we're doing it anyways, one of our appointments has resigned as of the 1st, so we actually have two to fill, so to
appointments?
speak, and one incumbent.
Okay, I'll meet with
So,
Chris on that
And we do
tomorrow.
have one application in the office so far, so if anyone's watching and wants to get involved with the mental health board, get your application in. It's just loads of fun.
Rob, is that,
That's the way to sell it.
is any one of those a client appointment?
The incumbent is a client.
Okay, so we need to continue to keep a client appointment?
Yes, we have to have 2 clients, and this is one of them.
Right.
Okay, thanks. I'll get
Notices
that
and
right.
announcements? Any to be had?
I noticed it's almost 9:30.
Any
I'm on
reason for a
bicycle.
closed session?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Ross gets it.